The research station named Horizon 9 floated quietly above the frozen moon of Vera. Around it stretched a sea of endless black, broken only by distant stars and the faint glow of the gas giant the moon circled. Inside the station, life followed a steady rhythm. Crew members walked through bright corridors, machines hummed in the background, and the main deck displayed constant streams of data from the planet below. Everything seemed calm, but calmness never lasted long at the edges of explored space. Commander Elias stood in the observation chamber, watching the docking bay as a small shuttle arrived. His second officer, Mara, had called him only minutes earlier with a voice filled with unease. She said the shuttle carried a passenger they did not expect. Elias, known for his calm judgment, now leaned forward with narrowed eyes as the bay doors opened. The crew stepped out first, but behind them walked a tall figure draped in a silver cloak. At first glance, Elias thought she was simply another explorer or trader, but as the cloak fell back slightly, her features became visible. Her skin shimmered faintly like pale crystal under the lights. Her eyes, larger than human eyes, gleamed with a deep shade of violet. The crew kept a respectful distance from her, as if they had felt something strange in her presence during the journey. Mara approached Elias quickly. Her words were quiet, but urgent. "Commander, she says she has something important to show us. She refused to stay on the shuttle. She demanded to be brought here." Elias studied the alien woman carefully. Her expression was sharp, controlled, yet there was tension in her eyes. He stepped closer and spoke in a steady voice. "You are welcome aboard Horizon 9, but I must ask who you are and what you want." For a long moment she did not answer. Then, with a voice soft yet steady, she said, "My name is Solara. And I did not come here by chance. I came because of what lies within this station." Her words drew puzzled looks from the crew. Elias frowned. "This station is a human construction. There is nothing here except our work and our research. What could you possibly mean?" Solara's gaze shifted past him, down the corridor that led to the lowest deck. For the first time her controlled expression cracked. Her violet eyes narrowed and her lips pressed together in something close to fear. She raised her hand slightly and pointed toward the corridor. "There is a door," she said. "A door older than your people realize. You have sealed it away in the lower deck, thinking it a forgotten piece of the structure. But it is not yours. And if you knew what waits behind it, you would run from this place and never return." The room grew still. Even the sound of the ventilation seemed to fade. Elias felt a weight settle in his chest. He remembered the odd reports from engineers years earlier about a strange metallic chamber they had found during expansion. The builders had not been able to remove it, so they sealed it away. The report had been filed and forgotten. Mara looked at Elias with wide eyes. "Commander, she should not know about that. Only the original records mention it." Solara's expression turned grim. She stepped closer, her cloak brushing the floor as she moved. Her voice lowered, almost like a whisper, yet each word carried across the chamber. "I have seen such doors before on other worlds. They are never empty. They guard something sleeping, something your people cannot understand. It does not wake unless it feels a presence strong enough to stir it." Her words were not shouted, but they cut deep into the hearts of those who heard them. The younger crew members shifted uneasily. One of the engineers whispered under his breath, "She speaks as if it's alive." Elias kept his stance firm, though inside his thoughts were racing. He wanted to dismiss her warning, but the look in her eyes made him pause. It was not the look of someone who wished to deceive. It was the look of someone who had seen too much and carried memories she wished she could forget. Finally he said, "Solara, if this is true, then we must know what it means. Humanity does not run from the unknown. We seek to understand it." For the first time, Solara's expression softened. She studied him as though weighing his spirit against the memories of others she had known. Then she gave a slow, sad nod. "Perhaps that is what makes your kind different. But sometimes courage leads to doors that should remain closed." The corridor leading to the sealed chamber stretched below them, silent and waiting. And though no one had touched the door in years, Elias felt as if it had already sensed their attention. He could not explain why, but in that moment he knew the path before them had already begun. The hours after Solara's warning passed with heavy silence on Horizon 9. Crew members went about their duties, yet their minds kept drifting back to the words of the alien woman. Whispers carried through the station, each telling a different version of what might be hidden behind the sealed door. Some spoke of ancient weapons, others imagined a forgotten experiment, and a few admitted they believed nothing was there at all. But none could ignore the fear in Solara's voice when she had spoken. Commander Elias called a meeting in the central briefing room. The crew gathered in a half-circle while the lights dimmed and the station's schematic appeared on the main screen. Elias stood in front of it, hands behind his back, his eyes steady though his mind wrestled with questions. "You have all heard what Solara said," he began. "Long ago, when this station was expanded, the builders found a chamber they could not remove. It was sealed and left alone. Records show no activity since then. But if Solara is correct, it may not be a simple chamber." Murmurs rippled across the room. Mara, seated near the front, leaned forward. "Commander, you believe her, don't you?" Elias paused before answering. "I believe she knows more than we do. And if her people feared such doors, then we cannot dismiss her words. Humanity may choose courage, but courage must walk with wisdom." The screen shifted, showing the lower decks where the forgotten chamber lay. A red mark highlighted the sealed door. Engineers had labeled it only as Structure X-17, a meaningless code. Solara, standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke. Her voice was calm, yet it carried a weight that pressed on every ear. "The doors are never placed without purpose. They were built by a civilization that existed long before mine, perhaps long before yours. My people call them the Silent Makers. No one has seen them for ages. But their creations remain, hidden behind doors such as this one." "Then what lies inside?" asked one of the younger crew, his voice trembling. Solara's violet eyes darkened. "Something that waits. I do not know what shape it will take here, for each chamber is different. On some worlds, it was machines that never rested. On others, it was knowledge too dangerous to share. And once, it was a living force that consumed an entire colony. My people fled, and we swore never to open such doors again." The room grew still. Fear crept into the minds of the crew, but so did a strange curiosity. Humanity had always pushed forward, no matter the risk. The thought of something hidden for ages stirred a fire in their hearts. Mara broke the silence. "If it is so dangerous, why not leave it sealed? We could report to the council and let them decide." Elias shook his head. "By the time the council debates, months will pass. If Solara is right, the chamber may already sense us. Waiting may be more dangerous than acting." The alien woman turned her gaze toward him. "You think the door has awareness? You are not wrong. These chambers were designed to respond to those who approach. The fact that I felt its presence the moment I arrived means it is already awake. A cold shiver passed through the room. No one moved, but all eyes returned to the glowing red mark on the screen. Elias straightened, his voice firm. Then we will see it with our own eyes. We will not open it blindly, but we will study it, test it, and learn what we face. If there is danger, we will confront it together. Humanity did not reach the stars to hide in fear. The crew nodded, some reluctantly, but the unity in Elias's words gave them strength. Solara, however, lowered her head slightly. She admired their resolve, yet she knew too well the price of opening what should remain closed. Later, Elias led a small team down the silent corridors of the lower decks. The lights flickered faintly, as if the station itself sensed where they were going. Dust coated the metal walls, untouched for years. At the end of the longest passage, the sealed door awaited them. It was unlike any human design. Black metal curved into patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Faint symbols glowed across its surface, symbols no machine had ever translated. The crew stood in awe, their breaths shallow. Solara's voice broke the silence. This is it. The mark of the silent makers. You must understand, Commander. Once you begin, there may be no return. The door does not open for curiosity. It opens for choice. Elias stepped forward, studying the strange symbols. For reasons he could not explain, his heart beat faster, as if he understood that this moment had been waiting for him all along. He placed his hand on the cold surface. The door pulsed faintly under his touch, like the rhythm of a heart. Behind him, the crew gasped. Solara's eyes widened, filled with both fear and something like wonder. The door had responded. The sealed door stood in silence after the faint pulse faded. Elias kept his hand on the surface a moment longer, then stepped back slowly. The symbols across the metal dimmed, returning to their ghostly glow. The crew shifted uneasily, whispering to one another in nervous voices. Solara did not move at all. Her violet eyes followed Elias, filled with the weight of memory. Later, in the main council room of Horizon 9, the debate began. Representatives from each crew section sat around the circular table. Some leaned forward with determination, others with clear unease. At the center, Elias remained calm, though his thoughts raced. We stand at a crossroad, he said. The chamber is no myth. You all saw it respond. Whatever lies inside, it knows we are here. The question is simple. Do we open it, or do we leave it sealed and call for others to decide? A young technician named Arun was the first to speak. His voice was eager, almost too eager. Commander, this could be the discovery of a lifetime. An artifact of a civilization older than any we know. If we turn away now, we abandon knowledge that could change everything for humanity. Across from him, Mara shook her head firmly. Knowledge means nothing if it destroys us. Solara warned us. She has seen these doors before. We should listen. Leaving it sealed may be the only safe choice. The room stirred with mixed voices. Some agreed with Arun, their curiosity burning too strongly to ignore. Others sided with Mara, pointing out that exploration meant nothing if it cost them their lives. Solara finally spoke, her voice quiet yet carrying through the room like a whisper of wind. When my people found the first door, we argued as you do now. Curiosity won, and courage guided our hands. We opened it, and what came forth consumed an entire colony. No weapon could stop it, no shield could hold it back. We lost thousands before fleeing into silence. After that day, we swore never again. Her words silenced the room. The younger crew looked down, troubled. For a moment it seemed fear would close the debate. But Elias lifted his gaze, his voice steady. Solara, I respect what your people endured. But humanity is not your people. We are young in the stars, yet already we have faced storms and wars, disease and hunger. Each time we survived, not by hiding, but by facing what lay ahead. If there is danger here, we cannot pass it on to others. We must meet it ourselves. The council fell into silence. Mara frowned but did not argue further. She knew Elias's words carried truth, though fear still lingered in her heart. Arun and several others straightened with pride, inspired by the commander's resolve. Solara studied Elias carefully. She had expected fear to rule the humans as it had ruled so many before. Yet in his voice she heard not recklessness, but conviction. It was not that he denied the danger. It was that he believed danger must be faced, not avoided. At last, Solara said, "You are different. Perhaps that difference is your strength, or perhaps it will be your end. I cannot decide for you. The choice must be yours." The council voted. The decision was not easy, but the majority chose to proceed. Horizon 9 would attempt to open the chamber. Mara accepted the result with a heavy heart. Arun looked almost breathless with excitement. Solara bowed her head slightly, as though in respect, though her expression remained unreadable. When the meeting ended, Elias returned to the observation deck. The stars shone outside, cold and endless. He placed his hands on the railing, his eyes distant. Mara joined him quietly. "Commander," she said, "are you certain of this path? We could be opening something that ends us all." Elias did not answer right away. At last he turned to her, his face calm. "No path is certain, Mara. But humanity was not made to hide. If this chamber holds danger, then others will find it one day. Better that we face it now than leave it for our children. That is the choice we make." Mara sighed but gave a small nod. She had followed Elias for years, through storms and battles, and his faith in humanity had never failed. She hoped it would not fail now. Far away, Solara stood alone in a quiet corridor. She placed her hand against the wall, feeling the hum of the station. Her thoughts drifted back to memories of fire and loss, of doors that should never have been opened. Yet something in her heart whispered that humans were not like the others. They walked toward danger with hope rather than despair. She feared that hope would burn them, but part of her longed to believe it could save them. And deep in the lower decks, the sealed door pulsed faintly once more, as if it too waited for the human choice. The lower deck of Horizon 9 had never been so crowded. Engineers checked scanning devices, security officers stood ready with shields, and scientists whispered to one another as they adjusted their instruments. At the center of it all stood Commander Elias, Solara, and Mara. Before them loomed the sealed door, dark and silent, though everyone felt it was no longer just a piece of metal. Elias gave the order. "Begin scans." A wave of energy swept over the door as machines hummed. Strange patterns appeared on the monitors, shifting in ways no human software could understand. One of the scientists frowned deeply. "Commander, the readings make no sense. It looks like the door is responding to us, as if it knows we are here." The words unsettled the crew, though no one stepped back. Elias folded his arms, eyes fixed on the glowing symbols. "Keep going. Look for a pattern." Hours passed as they worked. The door pulsed faintly each time a human came close, yet it ignored the machines. When Mara pressed her hand against its surface, the glow brightened for a moment, then faded. but when Elias stepped forward and touched the door, the glow surged, filling the corridor with pale light. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Symbols flared across the metal like flowing rivers of light, arranging themselves into shifting shapes. Elias pulled his hand back, startled, but the light continued to dance as if alive. Silara's eyes widened. It recognizes him. The door does not answer to machines or to my kind. It responds only to human touch. Her words spread quickly among the crew. Shock turned to awe. Humanity had always sought proof that it was unique among the stars. Now here was something older than memory itself, and it chose them. Elias steadied his breathing. If it reacts to me, then I must be the one to guide this. But I will not act without the station's full support. This choice belongs to all of us. The crew murmured their agreement, though fear still lingered in their eyes. Mara stood close by, her hand resting on the hilt of her sidearm, though she knew weapons would be useless against such a creation. Commander, what if this is a trap? What if the door is testing us before releasing something we cannot control? Silara turned to her slowly. That is exactly what it is. The doors are trials, not gifts. They open only when those who approach show resolve strong enough to awaken them. And once awakened, the trial cannot be undone. Her words fell like stones in the silent corridor. Yet Elias only nodded. Then it seems humanity has already begun the test. The following days became a storm of activity. The chamber was monitored at all hours. Symbols shifted in patterns that no one could decode, yet Elias often claimed he could sense their meaning. He described feelings rather than words, as though the door spoke directly to his instincts. This one feels like warning, he would say, or, this symbol means choice. Scientists grew frustrated at the lack of data, but they could not deny that the symbols responded more strongly to him than to anyone else. On the third day, a change occurred. The door emitted a low vibration that traveled through the entire deck. Lights flickered, and the station's power grid strained under pressure. Crew members clutched the rails as the vibration grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. Suddenly the corridor fell silent again. Then, across the door's surface, the symbols aligned into a single clear shape, a spiral of light pointing inward. Elias stepped forward without hesitation. He placed his palm against the center of the spiral. The corridor filled with blinding radiance. The door's edges shimmered, lines of fire tracing its shape. Slowly, with a sound like deep thunder, the metal began to part. The crew stumbled back, shielding their eyes, yet none turned away. As the gap widened, a rush of cold air swept out, carrying with it the scent of dust and stone, as though the chamber inside had been sealed for thousands of years. Shadows stretched across the floor, long and sharp. Silara whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It has accepted you. The first sign has passed." Elias lowered his hand, his face pale but steady. Then the door is not a wall. It is an invitation. Behind the widening entrance, darkness waited, vast and silent. The crew stared into it, torn between fear and wonder. Humanity had chosen to face the unknown, and the unknown had chosen to answer. The trial had begun. The chamber opened with a slow grinding sound, as if the station itself resisted the change. Beyond the doorway stretched a vast hall, larger than the crew expected, its walls glowing faintly with silver veins that pulsed like living streams of light. The air inside was cold and heavy, carrying a strange metallic taste that clung to every breath. Commander Elias stepped forward first. His boots echoed against the smooth black floor, each step swallowed quickly by the silence. Behind him, Mara and Solara followed with a small team of scientists and engineers. The rest of the crew remained at the entrance, uneasy yet unable to look away. The hall stretched into shadow, its ceiling so high it seemed endless. Strange structures lined the sides, resembling statues yet built of machines that seemed half asleep. Some stood tall with long arms folded, others knelt as though in rest. Their surfaces shimmered with the same silver veins that ran through the walls, glowing faintly in rhythm with Elias's footsteps. Arun, the young technician, whispered, "It looks like a city sleeping underground." Solara's gaze was sharp. Not a city. A vault. Everything here was placed with purpose. These machines were not abandoned. They are waiting. The team moved carefully, scanning the structures. Their instruments reported readings beyond human understanding. Energy fields pulsed within the machines, though faint, like embers left after a long fire. The scientists exchanged uneasy glances. At the center of the hall stood a raised platform. Upon it rested a massive core, round and glowing faintly as though a star had been trapped inside. Its surface pulsed in slow rhythm, and each pulse sent a faint vibration through the floor. Elias felt it in his chest like the beat of a heart. He climbed the steps toward it, his eyes fixed on the light. The closer he came, the stronger the pulse grew, not in sound, but in feeling. It filled his mind with a strange pressure, almost like a voice just beyond hearing. He stopped a few steps away and turned back to the crew. "This is what the door was guarding," he said quietly. "Not just machines, but something greater. Something alive in its own way." One of the scientists adjusted her scanner, her hands trembling. "Commander, the energy here is older than anything we have ever measured. It does not match any known pattern. It's as if the core itself rewrites our instruments when we try to study it." Mara's hand rested uneasily on her belt. "Alive or not, this feels like the heart of a trap. We should seal this place again before it fully wakes." Solara shook her head slowly. "No. If you sealed it now, it would not matter. The door opened because it accepted him. The core is already aware. To walk away now would not stop what has begun." Elias listened to their words but felt drawn forward. The core's light reflected in his eyes, steady and unblinking. He raised his hand, hesitated, then let his fingers hover near its surface. The glow brightened instantly, filling the hall with blinding radiance. Every machine along the walls stirred. Their heads lifted, arms shifted, and faint tremors ran through the floor as though the entire hall had taken a deep breath after centuries of stillness. The crew gasped and stumbled back, some raising their weapons out of instinct. "Do not attack," Elias ordered firmly. His voice echoed against the high walls. "They are not moving to strike. They are awakening." The light dimmed slightly, enough for the crew to see again. The machines stood still once more, but now their eyes glowed faintly, following the humans with silent attention. Solara's voice trembled, though not with fear, but with awe. "I have never seen them answer like this. To my people, the core always remains silent. But to you, it listens." Elias lowered his hand, breathing deeply. "Then this is not only a vault. It is a test. A trial left behind for those who would find it." Arun stepped closer, his eyes wide with wonder. "Commander, if this is a test, then we are the first to pass the opening. No other species reached this point." Solara gave a slow nod. "Perhaps that is true. And perhaps this is why the silent makers vanished. They did not build weapons of destruction. They built trials to see who could carry their legacy. The question is whether humanity is worthy." The core pulsed again, brighter this time, sending a wave of light across the chamber. The walls shimmered with symbols, forming lines and shapes that stretched like maps across the surface. The crew stared in silence, their hearts pounding. Elias's voice was calm, steady, filled with determination. Then we must prove ourselves. Whatever this trial demands, we will face it together. And deep within the hidden chamber, the ancient machines stood watching, as if judging the humans who dared to step inside. The light from the core filled the chamber until every surface shimmered. The crew shielded their eyes, but Elias stood still, his gaze locked on the glowing heart. The vibration beneath their feet deepened into a steady rhythm, like the station itself had begun to breathe. Then, without warning, the light spread outward and touched every human in the hall. Mara gasped as the world shifted around her. The chamber faded away, and suddenly she stood in an open desert with wind sweeping across endless dunes. Her uniform was gone, replaced by simple cloth. In her hands she held nothing. She turned in confusion and saw Elias beside her, along with Arun and the others. Each looked the same, disoriented yet aware they were still together. Solara was nowhere to be seen. Only humans had been brought into this vision. A voice filled the sky, not in words but in feelings. It was calm, ancient, and unyielding. Show who you are. Show why you endure. Elias steadied himself. It is a trial, he said, his voice firm. Not of strength, but of spirit. The desert shifted. From the sand rose great obstacles. A wall of fire stretched across the horizon. A canyon split the ground with no bridge to cross. A storm formed above, its winds shrieking with power. Each obstacle radiated the same challenge: survival against the impossible. Arun looked terrified. How do we fight this? There's no weapon, no machine. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. We don't fight it. We face it together. The first trial came with the fire. The wall of flame stretched wide, heat pressing against their skin. The crew hesitated, but Elias walked forward. Stay close. Fear burns hotter than fire. He led the way, and though the flames licked at their arms, they passed through unharmed. Courage, not resistance, had opened the path. Next came the canyon. Its depth seemed endless, its edges crumbling with each step. Arun trembled, certain no leap could carry them across. Yet Mara found a narrow path winding downward. It doesn't want us to jump, she said. It wants us to look carefully, to think. The crew descended, crossed the hidden ledge, and climbed the far side. Ingenuity, not force, carried them through. Then came the storm. Winds tore at them, lightning flashing in the dark. The crew scattered, trying to shield themselves. But Elias called out, his voice rising above the roar. Stay together. Alone we are nothing. United we are strong. Slowly, each crew member fought their way toward him. They locked arms, forming a circle, bracing one another against the storm. The winds screamed, but the circle held. Unity became their shield, and the storm faded into silence. When the storm cleared, the desert dissolved. The chamber of machines returned, glowing brighter than before. The crew stood gasping for breath, yet unharmed. Their eyes met one another's, and for the first time, they understood the trial had not tested strength or weapons. It had tested courage, creativity, and unity. Solara stepped forward from the shadows, her expression unreadable. She had not shared their vision, but she had witnessed the results. You passed, she whispered, wonder softening her voice. Where others faltered, you endured. The chamber has judged you worthy. The machines that lined the walls stirred again. Their eyes glowed brighter, their bodies rising into full stance. They did not attack. Instead, they bowed their heads slightly, as though acknowledging the humans before them. Elias felt the weight of the moment. It was never about unlocking power, he said quietly. It was about proving we are ready to bear responsibility. The core pulsed once more, brighter than ever. This time the light was warm, not blinding. Images filled the chamber: star maps, knowledge of energy, blueprints of machines beyond imagination. Humanity's future unfolded in shining streams of data, offered freely by the ancient vault. Arun's voice shook with awe. They are giving it to us. The legacy of the silent makers. Siluro lowered her gaze. And they give it only to you. My people faced this trial long ago and failed. Many others turned away. But humanity walks forward when others retreat. Perhaps this is what makes you different. Mara touched Elias's arm, her eyes filled with both pride and fear. Commander, if we accept this, we change everything. Not only for us, but for every world we touch. Elias looked at the glowing core. His voice was steady, filled with resolve. Then we accept. Not for power, not for conquest, but for the hope that carried us through fire, through storm, and through the unknown. We will carry this legacy with the same courage that brought us here. The chamber hummed in approval. The machines stilled once more, their eyes glowing softly, no longer as judges, but as guardians. The trial of humanity was complete. And humanity had passed. The chamber's glow slowly dimmed, leaving only a steady radiance from the core. The humans stood in silence, their faces lit by the soft light. They had endured the trials, and now the vault of the silent makers had accepted them. Elias lowered his gaze to the star maps floating in the air. The symbols shifted gently, rearranging into paths that spread across the galaxy. Some led to distant worlds filled with knowledge, others to points of energy beyond imagination. It was a gift, but it was also a responsibility. He felt the weight settle on his shoulders, heavier than any command he had carried before. Mara stepped forward, her voice low but steady. Commander, this is more than we ever dreamed. But can we carry it wisely? We are still young compared to the stars. Elias turned to her. His expression was calm, yet there was fire in his eyes. We are young, yes. But youth is not weakness. Youth carries hope. The makers did not ask for perfection. They asked for courage and unity. That is what we gave. That is who we are. Siluro listened quietly from the edge of the platform. She had watched many species approach such doors only to fail. To her, this moment felt impossible, yet she could not deny what she saw. She bowed her head slightly. You have done what others would not. My people will not believe it until I bring them word. And even then, they may not understand. But I do. The silent makers chose well. The machines lining the walls lowered their heads again, then slowly folded into stillness. Their eyes dimmed, no longer judging but guarding the chamber with silent peace. The vault no longer felt like a place of dread. It felt like a hall of trust, waiting for its chosen guardians to guide what came next. Back on the station's main deck, the crew gathered to hear Elias's decision. The maps and blueprints projected across the air as he spoke. Today, we stand not as wanderers, but as chosen. The silent makers did not give us power to rule, but knowledge to protect. What we carry now is not only for humanity, but for every world we may touch. We must be careful. We must be wise. But above all, we must be true to ourselves. Arun's face glowed with wonder. Commander, does this mean humanity will rise faster than ever before? Ships, energy, discoveries without end. Elias gave a faint smile. Yes. But the measure of greatness is not how fast we rise, but how we rise. We will not repeat the mistakes of those who failed this trial. We will not reach for power without purpose. We will reach for the stars with the same unity that brought us here. Mara placed her hand over her chest, her voice firm. Then let Horizon 9 be remembered as the place where humanity's true journey began. The crew cheered, not loudly, but with pride that carried through the station. For the first time in years, they felt not like explorers at the edge of the unknown, but pioneers standing at the doorway of a new age. Later, Elias returned to the sealed corridor one last time. The door had closed behind them, yet the chamber's presence still lingered in the air. He placed his hand against the cold surface. The symbols glowed faintly beneath his palm, a quiet acknowledgement. He whispered, not for others to hear but for the makers themselves. We will not waste what you gave us. We will carry it forward. Solara joined him quietly. Her violet eyes reflected the dim glow. Your people will face trials greater than this one. The galaxy is vast, and not all will welcome what you now carry. But I believe you will endure. Where others see only fear, you see hope. That is your strength. Elias looked at her with respect. Then walk with us. Humanity does not stand alone. She gave the smallest of smiles. Perhaps I will. Perhaps my people will learn from yours. The stars outside Horizon 9 shone brighter than ever. The crew prepared messages for Earth, reports filled with truths that would change history. Humanity had been tested, and for the first time in the long silence of the makers, a species had been judged worthy. The alien woman's warning still echoed in memory, if you knew what was behind the door, you would run. But humanity had not run. They had stepped forward, and in doing so, they had unlocked a future far greater than they imagined. The door was no longer just a sealed wall. It was a gateway. And beyond it waited not only the legacy of the past, but the promise of the stars.